All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, in a shocker, Jay Wright stepped down yesterday as the men's basketball coach for the Villanova Wildcats. Now, under Wright, Villanova had their best stretch in program history, which included 8 Big East regular season titles, 5 Big East tournament titles, 4 trips to the Final Four, and a pair of national championships. Now, at Villanova, Wright won 520 games, which is the most of any head coach in program history. Wright did this in his way, as he only had 2 losing seasons at Villanova while sending his fair share of talent to the NBA, which included the likes of Kyle Lowry, Josh Hart, and Randy Foye. Now, Wright found a way to compete in the Big East when it was ultra tough in the 2000s with the likes of Syracuse, Louisville, Cincinnati, West Virginia, and Pitt still in the conference to go along with UConn and Marquette, just to name a few. Now, under Wright, the Wildcats became the team to beat in the new Big East after the basketball schools split from the football schools in 2013. And also under Wright, Villanova became a national power. And in doing so, they held their own against the likes of Kansas, Michigan, and North Carolina, just to mention just some of the powers that they had victories over. Now, when it's all said and done, you go back to 2016, and of course, when Chris Jenkins hit that 3-point shot for Villanova to beat North Carolina for the national championship, it took Wright and this program to another level. We saw the Wildcats come back in 2018 and do it again with a different cast for the most part and being able to win another national championship. And, you think about it, Wright had a system that made other schools very envious. You think about it, Wright relied heavily on his guards, and he did that from the jump at Villanova. You think about when Nova really took that next step as a program in the early to probably like the mid 2000s. It was a 4 guard lineup. You had the likes of Mike Nardi, Randy Foye, Alan Ray, and then of course Kyle Lowry out there. And that Villanova program in 2005 gave the eventual national champion, the North Carolina Tar Heels, all that they could handle in the Sweet 16. And then the following year, we saw Nova be a number 1 seed before they fell to Florida in the Midwest Regional Final. But nonetheless, it was all about his guards. It was all about ball movement, which was another big thing. And it was all about versatility and players being able to move without the basketball. That's something that he preached a lot. You didn't see a lot of his guys leave school too early, maybe after their junior year, but nonetheless, them being in a system for that long of a time gave them an edge to me in order to have success in the NBA, and if not in the NBA, in another pro league around the world. Now, with that said, with Wright, um, overall, he was courted by bigger programs as well as the NBA, but he decided to stay in Pennsylvania at Villanova, and he really established himself and he really solidified himself there. And under Wright, Villanova was able to recruit some of the top basketball talent from Philadelphia, the great state of Maryland, Virginia, and DC as well. And that was important. And of course, being a consistent top 10 team and also being making multiple trips to the Final Four and, of course, winning a couple of national championships and sending guys to the NBA also helps that. So you think about Wright's legacy at Villanova, and he took over this program when they were an afterthought. I mean, you look at what Raleigh Massimino meant to Villanova for so long. And of course, Jay Wright, once upon a time, was an assistant under Raleigh Massimino. In stepped Steve Lapis after that. And, the Wildcats did have success on the Lapis. They had 4 trips to the NCAA tournament, but they were never able to get past the second round in spite of the fact that they did have some great regular seasons. But then Jay Wright stepped in 2001, and he built slowly, uh, brick by brick, so to speak. And before you know it, Villanova was not just able to contend in the Big East; they held their own especially at such a difficult time because you think about how tough the Big East was in the 2000s. You had Pitt, you had UConn, you had Syracuse, and of course, with Syracuse and UConn, they won back-to-back national championships. You think about the emergence of Georgetown that time, at the time of John Thompson III, West Virginia arriving with Bob Huggins, Louisville arriving with Rick Pitino, Marquette. I could just keep going down the list here, but nonetheless, the Wildcats were able to hold their own. Then, once the Big East split up, Villanova became the team to beat. They set the pace, and not to say that the Big East is still not a strong basketball conference, but the Wildcats were able to set the pace in that conference, and they basically became the envy of everybody in that conference. And for Jay Wright, it's not just about his coaching ability. It's also about his flair for fashion because I mean, this guy, was always dressed to the nines, always had him, a nice tailored suit out there. And you know what? He was looking smooth. So, with that said, you think about it, he's only 60 years of age, and you say only, it's because, he took this job at a very young age. And, maybe it's time for him to rest. Maybe it's time for him to go on to another venture. Some people want to speculate and say maybe the NBA or another head coaching job. I think at least for right now, I think he's going to be content where he's at. Never, you never say never because you know what? I guarantee you that at least for the next couple of years, anytime that there's a big job opening in college basketball, you're going to hear Jay Wright's name. And on top of that, you're going to see programs come and offer him a boatload of money to try to come out of retirement. We'll have to see what happens. But again, you never say never. So in steps Kyle Neptune, and he's going to be the next head coach at Villanova. He was an assistant under Wright for 9 years at Villanova before he took the Fordham job last year. And in 1 year, the Rams had a 14 game improvement in the win column. So, of course, Neptune knows this system inside and out. And now he's going to try to keep the ball rolling for one of the prominent programs in the Northeast. So, this is a game changer right here because not too long ago, I talked about the coaches that the Big East was stockpiling for men's basketball. And it's still solid because this in this coaching cycle alone, we saw Shaheen Holloway take over for Kevin Willard, who got the Maryland job, and of course Shaheen Holloway's taken over at Seton Hall after that improbable run by St. Peter's to the Elite Eight. We're seeing Thad Matta return to Butler, and of course Thad Matta had tremendous success at Ohio State, which included getting them to several Final Fours. Then Sean Miller coming back to Xavier. So this is just factored in with a guy like Greg McDermott at Creighton, Danny Hurley at Connecticut, Mike Anderson at St. John's, and I could go right down the list. But nonetheless, the Big East is still going to be a solid basketball conference, big conference for coaches, and let's see what they can all do going forward. It's very interesting now because now you have two of the four head coaches from the Final Four earlier this month who have retired. And of course, there wasn't a shock with Mike Krzyzewski because he let it be known from last year that this year was going to be his last year. And but the shocker definitely is with Jay Wright, but nonetheless, they both have basically handpicked their successors. We have John Shire taking over at Duke, and another Coach K assistant and a former Coach K player, and now, of course, Kyle Neptune with Villanova. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Wildcats. They probably take a little step back. I'm not sure how far, but they still are going to be contenders in the Big East Conference. But this was a shocker. But at the end of the day, if Jay Wright feels like it's time to walk away, there's absolutely nobody out there who should question him about it. Had tremendous success at Villanova. You can make a strong case, and honestly, I will say it. He is the best coach that the Villanova program has ever had, and that's not a slight to the men who have come before him, but nonetheless, Jay Wright has set the standard and taken it to a whole nother level. So let's see what's next for the Wildcats with Kyle Neptune leading the show. But at the end of the day, Jay Wright is going to leave some big shoes to fill for Mr. Neptune. Two national championships, four Final Fours, and he put plenty of banners. Um, on this Philadelphia campus, and he also brought a lot of money into the school as well. So let's see what Mr. Neptune can do to try to make people not remember as much the legacy of one J. Wright. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.